Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We've got loads of questions for you today, plenty to get through actually, so we'll fire through them as fast as we can. Don't forget though, if you like the videos that I put out, if you like these sort of things that we do every week for free, and the instructional content, which we'll have more coming soon as we're able to, as well. Support us, not just by like, sharing, subscribing. Of course, that is important. But by shopping at KendoStar.com. That's obviously my website that sells amazing, wonderful Kendo gear. We've got some new products this week. You might have seen them already. These Dento Gara Tenugu. I think they're really cool. Fans of popular Japanese popular culture, shall we say, might recognize some of these patterns from some famous TV shows that have been popular. I know my family have been quite interested in it, so we picked up a few of these for ourselves as well. So yeah, but they are actually traditional designs as well. They're not just from like TV series or something. They are actually traditional designs that go back centuries. So they're really, really cool. If they don't tickle your fancy, then of course there is the wonderful original KendoStar Tenugu that we've got as well. This one says Zanshin. We've got a full collection of them. There's loads of different designs now, so go and check out those if nothing else. All right, as well as of course Borg, Shinai, Kendogi Hakama, loads of stuff. All right, go and shop at KendoStar.com. Okay, that's that done. Let's get straight into these. Do you think it's okay for lower ranks to wear white Kendogi and Hakama uniforms to things like Shiai and Shinsa? I currently got a synthetic uniform that's light and breathable, but it seems to pick up a lot of static electricity and can cling weirdly because of that. Izome cotton uniforms look amazing, but they sound like they're not really optimum for frequent practice because of washing constraints. I'm looking at potentially getting a nice white cotton uniform to be the best of both worlds, although it seems like only the Korean Kendo practitioners and some occasional high-level senseis wear white. What's your take on it? So there's nothing wrong with wearing the white Kendogi and Hakama, but if you're like right at the beginning of your Kendo journey, it's probably best not to sort of rock up to Shiai and stuff wearing it, just because you'll stand out a bit and people will be like, you know, I mean, you shouldn't be judged on it, of course not. But I don't think it's necessary either. So, you know, I think as you wear the synthetic one a bit more, you'll sort of find that you don't have as much problem with the static electricity for a start. It's something that I think they're a bit worse with when they're new. It's not something I experienced personally. But, you know, the other option, of course, is when you do start going to Shiai tournaments and gradings, then, yeah, like an Izome cotton uniform is best for those events. And it's not great for everyday practice because it's quite difficult to care for and quite high maintenance, you know. I get that. So that's kind of the idea. You have your synthetic one for practice, and then your Izome one for those events. So you just wear the Izome one at those events and maybe just occasionally at practice, and then your synthetic one at practice is kind of the idea. You know, if you really want a white one, then go ahead, you know. But like from a practical point of view, I don't think it's the best solution for you. You'd be better off just with like a basic, like if you look at the beginner set that we do, like that's a cotton Kendogi that's not Izome dyed, so it's a little bit more more practical in terms of regular use. But like what I do personally is I wear the synthetic one. I've got the Kachi and its predecessor for my regular practice, and then at events I wear usually I wear the Kiyoi Kendogi because I really like it, and the Gorketsu Hakama. So yeah, but I do have the Kimboshi one as well for like if I wanted to be particularly prestige. But actually, I've been really wearing the Kiyoi a lot. Okay, next one. Just watched the video of Eiga versus Asuka. Do you think either of them will be nervous? And if so, who would be more so? Eiga sensei for doing practice with a famous pop star, or Asuka for practicing with arguably the best Kensha alive? So I posted this video on the blog the other day. There's a Japanese pop star called Asuka. He's one half of a famous group. They were They're not, they're not really releasing. I mean, I think they are still releasing stuff, but they're not that popular now. They were popular in the sort of 90s, called Chage and Asuka. And Asuka is he's from Fukuoka, which is where I used to live, and he practices kendo. His dad is actually the high level sensei, and he's I think he definitely was. I don't know if he still is. He was the kind of chairman of one of the local federations. So yeah, he's always sort of done kendo since he was a kid, and he had a break to be a pop star, and now he's sort of come back to kendo later in life. And there's a video, put up on the blog of him practicing with Eiga Naoki Sensei, obviously the famous Kendoka. And it's an interesting question. I don't think either of them would have been nervous, because I understand, I think I saw it in a documentary or a TV show or something, but I think the two already know each other, and I think they've practiced with each other a few times. I think Eiga Sensei has sort of given instructions to Asuka before, and I think they're sort of friends. So I don't think that, at least that's what I seem to remember seeing on a TV show. Next one, Fish Sensei has previously discussed that most proficient Jodan no Kamae players are also equally proficient in Chudan no Kamae. I'll pick up on that in a minute. Are there types of waza more associated with one versus the other to possibly give you an advantage if both kendoka are fairly equal on knowledge and skill? So just to caveat that a little bit, what I meant to say last week is, and I don't know if I probably communicated that properly. I haven't seen a really good Jodan player that isn't also really good at Chudan. That isn't to say that they're equally proficient at both, though. Usually the sort of dedicated Jodan players are better at Jodan than they are at Chudan, though they're also really good at Chudan. Now, those people are really rare. Like, really good Jodan players are super rare. I haven't met very many, and I don't know of many. There's a lot of sort of mediocre Jodan players. Remembering that in Japan, most Jodan players don't take up Jodan by choice. It's something that they're instructed to do. But yeah, I mean, there are types of waza that are more associated to both kamae, really. Obviously, from Jodan, you can't really do tsuki, but they do katate waza, one-handed strikes from Jodan. It's one of the reasons you do Jodan, is that you can attack from further away with one-handed strikes just from the left hand. So that obviously allows you to use a longer range than the Chudan player. So the idea is that you're able to make attacks from further away. So the Chudan player is trying to kind of take away that disadvantage by getting inside of that distance. And also you open up more Datotsubui, the striking areas. If you go to Jodan, you're also allowed to strike the left kote as well as the right one. So you do put yourself at a little bit more risk. So, but it's like any other aspect of kendo. It's not that one has more of an advantage than the other, but they both have different tools for dealing with each other. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Hi Andy, 2 questions. What is the responsibility of the Shihan, Kantoku, and coach, perhaps also Shusho and Shunin, in a larger club, respectively? How do their roles differ or overlap? Secondly, what's the dress code for the Kantoku or coach during a shiai when sitting next to the shiaijo? I've noticed that at a high level, most wear a suit in Japan, but in some tournaments, however, like the police championships, they wear gi and hakama instead. Then again, in some other tournaments, like the university and students championships, to confuse me completely, most wear suits. However, some Kantoku, like Takenaka Sensei from Kanoya Taiku Daigaku, or Murakami Raita from Osaka Taikudai, wear gi and hakama as well. I thought this was because they are sports universities, but Nittaidai's Kantoku, for example, wears a suit. Are there any rules on that? Okay, so good question. The Shihan is of a university club, or like a police club, or even a company club. The Shihan is the kind of main or lead teacher that's usually appointed. It's usually somebody that's like got hanshi, and it's usually more of an honorary position. They don't tend to go to the practice that much, so you don't tend to see them that often. The kantoku is the person that's in charge of like the team and the shiai. So like, and usually the main teacher of the club, usually, because they make the main decisions, like who's on the team and what order the team's going to be in, and stuff like that. The coach is usually like a secondary role. Not most, but lots of clubs don't have both a kantoku and a coach. It's quite often the same person, but sometimes it'll be like they'll appoint a coach who's like a former student of the place, like sometimes it's like a role created for a specific person, so they've got a job sort of thing. And obviously they help out with teaching. The shisho is the captain, so that's one of the students, who will be the sort of the captain, that leads the practice often. So they'll be the one that does the gore commands, like line up and sit down, and often the one that runs the practice menu, so like tells the group what to do, like we're going to do kirikaishi next or menuchi next. The kantoku usually doesn't decide that. They might decide the menu and then give it to the shisho and say, right, do that every day or something like that. But the shisho leads the practice, and the shunin, I'm not entirely sure. I've not ever been at a club with a shunin, actually, but it could be. It could be lots of different things. That it could be just somebody that's got responsibility for the club. It could be like a manager. They usually call the manager though, who's like, the manager is usually like, it's almost invariably like at a high school club. It's almost invariably a girl. Not because it has to be a girl, I don't believe. It's just usually that girls come forward and ask to be the manager, and they like do a lot of the admin work, or like preparing water and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the role of shunin, if I'm honest. It might be more. I didn't do a lot of practice with universities, and when I practiced at high schools, the high schools didn't have all of those roles. In regards to the dress code, I think it really depends on the shiai itself, and probably also the circumstances of it. I don't know, because I've only been the kantoku for children's shiai in Japan, so I've only had that specific experience. But usually the kantoku will wear a suit, or like you say, a Dogen Hakama. They might wear a Kendogi Hakama especially if there's like another event in the tournament that the kantoku might be participating in, for example. Not forgetting that the Kendogi Hakama, yeah, it is a kendo outfit, but it's also sort of Japanese traditional wear as well, and can be considered formal wear. Not quite to the extent of a suit with a tie, not the kind of Dogen Hakama that we wear in kendo anyway, but still, it's generally considered okay. But yeah, it depends. It really depends. Like at children's tournaments, they'll wear a tracksuit because there's loads of them, and it's a little bit less formal. And again, it depends on the sort of grandeur of the tournament itself. So it might well be that there's tradition or rules as well for specific shiai as well. Obviously, like you say, you mentioned the police tournament. I don't know. I've never entered that tournament, and I'm not privy to the sort of background rules of it. Some of them are a bit obscure, and they might not even be rules. They might just be sort of tradition. Hi Andy, in response to your comment about Takuan Soho, it's reported that he invented the pickle, hence the name. Well, there you go. On to this week's question. In gradings, were often prepped by the panel to spend time building up a connection with the opponent at the beginning of the keiko part of the grading. But sometimes you get an opponent that just rushes in and does not allow that to build up. How does one control them in such situations? Just respond with ojiwaza or shikakewaza? Or is there a way to stop them and get them to do that build up? So, all right. It's a good question, and it's something that I've had people ask before. Personally, and I'm only speaking about this from my own point of view, if I was sat on the grading panel. So other grading panelists might have a different opinion, right? But up to and including third dan, I wouldn't be looking at this. All right. I'm not up to and including third dan, I'm not really looking at how well you are doing sort of semi or interacting with the opponent, or how you're sort of building up a connection. I wouldn't start to look at that until fourth dan, to be honest. So for me, like if an opponent starts doing that in a grading, I think that's a really easy thing to deal with, because like you say, you should be sort of switched on right from the start. And then if they start flying in at you and start doing that, well, they usually do it in some sort of rhythmic pattern, because they're just coming at you one after another. And you just do the Ojuwaza or Debanawaza. You know what timing they're coming in, right? So you should be all right. I don't think it's such a difficult thing to deal with. If you're great, like even for fourth dan, like I don't think, if you stand up at Sonkyo, yeah, like this, and they come flying in straight away, pam pam, you could do Ojuwaza, or you could do the Debanawaza, and you could do that repeatedly as long as you're taking the initiative over them, which you should still be able to do, all right? Because they're the ones that's going to do something, and then there's going to be a break, and then they're going to start coming towards you to do the next one. And at this point, you take a step in and do something. Yeah. And even if that happens over and over again, and you've got the technical ability, you'll still pass fourth dan doing that, as long as your strikes are still sort of making logical sense, and you're taking that initiative there. It's a really easy opponent to deal with that does that. Really easy, actually. But if it's like third dan or below, I don't subscribe to the idea that you have to start making some sort of contact with them. It's a technical assessment up to that point, in my opinion, about your ability and your actual technique. Okay, next one. Hello, Andy. Is it common to develop wrist problems such as carpal tunnel syndrome over time in Kendo? If so, what advice do you have for avid practitioners to take care of their wrist health? Well, I don't know really about what advice I could give you to do it, because I'm not qualified. But yeah, I mean, wrist problems, something I've suffered with, as are elbow problems. I tend to get problems in my wrists and elbows, and probably I anticipate in my knees in the future as well. Probably not as bad as other things, but I think Kendo is quite hard on the wrists and elbows. There are things you can do to prevent it. Obviously, sort of training to, I like to use like wrist curl techniques with a dumbbell to try and strengthen the muscles in my wrists, and similar with my elbows as well. I use a TheraBand to sort of strengthen the tendons in my forearms and my elbows to help with the tennis elbow that I get. But I do think it's kind of, if you put like all your passion, heart and soul into practicing the sport, it comes with side effects, right? I don't know of any sort of sports that don't. I mean, I'm sure there are, but like most sports that involve physical exertion and physical contact come with their own sort of risks, don't they? Hi Andy, what do you think will happen to European Kendo? COVID-19 has devastated membership numbers in clubs and federations across Europe. Does Kendo have salvation in the future? Wow. Yeah, obviously it's been a miserable year and a bit, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been miserable for not just European Kendo, for Kendo globally. Japan have obviously made an effort to keep Kendo going as much as they can, and they have done, but then it's a different situation there. You can't just it's a very different situation there, let's just say. And yeah, of course it's affected things terribly, and it's been a big impact on federations, because they've obviously lost revenue from new members who obviously pay subscription fees, and that's a very difficult hurdle that they're going to have to overcome. I believe that they'll be able to, especially as it seems like most places are sort of, now we've got vaccines and stuff like that, and I know we're not out of the woods, as it were, but it seems like we're on the right track for the most part. So, I think there's also, on the other side of it, I think there's a big build-up of new people that are ready to come to Kendo or come back to Kendo. Even people that have maybe done Kendo years ago and given up, and then you know, they've seen this as a chance to get back into something. I've actually personally had contact with people at my club, with my own Kendo club, from people that had done Kendo years ago and got in touch with me and said, oh, I'm after it's all over, I'd like to get back into it. So I think, as with anything, I think the federations face a similar challenge to what many thousands of businesses face, obviously after the devastation of the last year. And if they can sort of survive and pull through, I think there's obviously brighter times ahead. I really do believe that. So I think the message is to just keep positive and try our best to keep the wheels of Kendo turning. Of course there's salvation in the future as soon as we're able to start to pick things back up again. And in some places they are, in some places the numbers are going great, and dojos are starting to open, and it won't be long, I don't think, before more places in Europe will be able to as well. So when that happens, I think we'll start to see movement again, and I think Kendo will come back strong. Sorry, one more time for touching on this subject for me. So when I have my opponent close to the boundary, should I push the opponent out? Still trying to determine how to approach or abandon the pushing and boundary dynamic. Okay, so we've been talking about this now for a couple of weeks, haven't we? So your concern is that, like, I think you're not so keen on the sort of sportsmanship or fairness of pushing someone out of the shiai-jo during a shiai if they're by the edge of the court. So look, you get one push. If you want to push them out and they're by the edge, you're not acting unfairly to do so. You're not acting dishonorably. You're acting within the boundaries of the rules, and you're helping them on sort of by giving them everything. You're helping them in their Kendo journey as well, which is what I talked about last week. But look, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it. You don't have to push them out. There's no rule that says you have to. So if they're by the edge of the shiai-jo and you don't want to push them out, then don't. If it makes you feel sort of uneasy, then don't do it. You don't have to, all right? But I did post a video after this comment showing you sort of an example of what you're allowed to do. So yeah, use that as a basis, and after that, use your own judgment. It's up to you, but don't expect other people to follow that. All right. So if you don't push them out, and then you find yourself at the edge of the shiai-jo, don't expect them not to push you out. Next one. What's your thoughts on modern materials in Borger? Before I ordered my KendoStar Vanguard, thank you very much. Really excited to get it. I came across a shop that offered Borger with sorbothane rubber padding sewn into the men and Kotef Don for shock absorption. Another that offered Borger that was covered in polyester mesh material like synthetic orizashi kendogi cloth instead of traditional izome. It was supposed to be more breathable, dry faster after practice, although the colour wasn't quite the right shade of blue. Do you have any experience with the newer materials like this, and do you think they'll stick around and gain popularity? So the sorbothane thing was something that they tried in Borger like 25 years ago or something, and it never took off, because I don't think it makes a massive difference. To be honest, I've made a video about modernizing the Kendo Borger, so I suggest you watch that definitely, because I've talked about that and why I don't think it's going to happen in a massive way. We already use quite modern materials for the padding of the Borger. All right, now there are some like specialized stuff. I've seen the sorbothane Borger and compared it with Borger that isn't sorbothane, and I haven't seen a noticeable difference personally. All right. There are other materials, more sort of modern materials than sorbothane, that are like bright orange and stuff, and they use them in like crash helmets and stuff like that. I've looked at that and I've thought it was quite interesting to explore, but the concept of exploring that it's way above the sort of level of where the Kendo industry is at the moment. I mean, you're talking of sort of, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of product investment in just, research and development. And then, of course, safety testing. So I don't think it's super necessary. I think you can get fantastic protection out of the materials that we already have. certainly that you know, if you look at something like the Vanguard or the Vanguard Myrmidon, you know, I don't think the Borg needs to be more protective than they are, to be honest. There's a fine line, and obviously this is interesting because of the new product we put out. I'll put a different video out about that with the pads. You know, it's like the shirt with the pads here. And that obviously generated quite a lot of controversy when I put that out, but I'll do a different video about that. But, you know, there's a fine line between where the protection should be adequately protective and comfortably protective, and then where it goes beyond that, and then where if we go too far with it, then we start to lose what we're trying to do. And that if it goes too far, for example, if we just cover ourselves in padding and people don't have to care about correct technique or correct accuracy and stuff like that, it could run the risk of devolving what Kendo is very rapidly, and people may just sort of lose sight of that. So I am very wary of that as well. About the sort of the synthetic material Borger, I'm looking at that at the minute, especially for Kote. I think it's all right for Kote as a practice Kote, because you can wash them quite easily and they'll dry faster, and they won't fade. But I wouldn't use them like at formal events because they're kind of shiny and the color does look off. So I think they're all right for that. I wouldn't use them for a full Borger. I think that looks a little bit odd, to be honest. And it's not super durable either. The cotton is more durable for Borger than the synthetic stuff. Next one. Why is hemp or linen so uncommon for Kendogi, like super rare or special order? Or it's like perfect for summer or super humid locations? Don't really know, to be honest. I've not really explored that option massively. I have seen hemp Kendogi in the past and didn't rate them that much. Like if you want something that's like for summer or humid, I'd go with one of the synthetic options anyway. I don't think there's a massive demand for it, to be honest. You know, I just don't think the demand's there, and that's why it's so rare. I don't know. You know, it's the first time anyone's ever asked me for that, so there you go. What are your views on dirty kendo fights? Intense pushing and shoving, hitting the opponent as they fall or when they're on the ground and the likes. I'm still a beginner and wonder if I have to stick to any idea of honourable, clean fighting style. I've been watching Imperial Guard versus Japanese police fights and they look brutal, to be honest. All right, so here's what I have a problem with, right? There's a problem with when you're still a beginner and watching, like, you have to watch high-level kendo, you really do. But I really do think, and it's hard to get this message out, the police championships is not the one to watch. It's just not the one to watch. The police championships exists in a very special vacuum that's different to the rest of high-level kendo. You shouldn't copy what's happening at the police level tournaments. They've got different rules and they've got it's a very different atmosphere at the police championships. All right, so don't copy what you see at the police championships for the most part. It's not dirty to hit an opponent that's fallen on the floor. That's part of the rules you're allowed to do. And you're allowed one push if someone's by the edge of the shiaijo. Anything more than that is excessive and should be given as a handsucker to a penalty to the person doing the pushing. So it shouldn't be win at all costs no matter what, with reckless abandon. You have to still have respect for your opponent and for yourself. So don't do that sort of thing. And like I say, the police championships, you know, I almost wish there weren't videos of it. I mean, as much as I enjoy watching them as well, I do. But they do give out the wrong sort of impression because it exists in a different sphere to the rest of Kendo, right? Watch the All Japan Championships and try and do Kendo like that, all right? Hi Andy, I always wondered how the little red Iki flag is used by the coach in Shiai. Actually, I've never seen it. What happens when there's a need for it? So in the official rules at official tournaments, the kantoku or the coach gets a little flag which is for Iki, which is to make a protest. They have the right to stop the Shiai and raise concerns or protests that they have about the accordance of the match. However, it's very rarely used because it's not for matters of opinion, all right? So if you think a point was scored that shouldn't have been, or a point wasn't scored that should have been, it's not for that, right? You don't get a say in that as a coach, or as a as a coach. Let's say coach, all right? You don't get a say in that. What it's for is, let's say, their player steps out of the shiaijo, right? Then the referees stop the shiai and get confused as to which player stepped out, and they try to give the hand socket to your player. You can use it then, right? And say, sorry, I think you're trying to give it to them because they stepped out. That's a bit of a grey area. It's for when the coach thinks that the rules and regulations for the shiai have been applied incorrectly, and they have the opportunity to raise that with the shimpan. Usually the shimpan shunin, actually. So it depends. It's very rare, hardly ever happens, right? But it's there just as a precaution, I guess. What are your thoughts and tips for people that have flat feet problems, especially flat left foot? Thanks. Just try your best. I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough about the problem. I've never heard of anybody, like, of all the people that I've met, I'm sure there are other people that do Kendo that have these problems. But I don't think they should prevent you doing Kendo properly. So yeah, I don't really have much advice I can give on that, because I'm definitely not a doctor and I don't really know enough about what flat feet problems are and how they affect Kendo. But I know that there's people that have said that they've got them and they're still quite good at Kendo, so I don't think it should be a problem. Whilst watching old episodes of Kendo Rant, I saw your explanation for the Japanese written portion of the promotion test. You showed an example of a booklet that had the acceptable answers in it, but it was all in Japanese. Is there an English language version of this anywhere? I'm sure I'm not the only person that would like a copy. No, there's not an English language version of it. If there was, it'd be for sale on KendoStar, I promise you. But it hasn't been translated into English because other countries don't use necessarily the same grading criteria, and they don't necessarily use the same questions. In fact, lots of them don't. So yeah, that's why they I guess haven't bothered to. Dear Andy, this question references a comment on a regular KendoStar product post, and I think it is wise to present it here. I've decided to forego Borgu, wearing it for a while because I'm not a sissy. I've changed the word you use there, by the way. I don't want YouTube to pick it up. In fact, I'm starting to feel the same about the Gi and Hakama now. I'm practically completely naked. I'd feel like I would like, however, to honour my Pictus ancestors and paint myself completely blue head to toe. Here's a question: is the Aizomidai self a Borgu touch-up health and safety for regular use on human skin? If so, can you sell it in 10 litre jugs? All right, okay. So this is a joke, obviously, based on the new product that we put up, I think it was yesterday, the undergarment with the pads on it, and like some of the interesting comments that we got on it on other Kendo forums on Facebook about how wearing it would make you a sissy and other such rubbish. So yeah, obviously this is a joke. I'm going to make a separate video addressing those comments, actually, and the sort of controversy surrounding that product, because it kind of baffled me. I didn't expect it. But no, don't, the Aizome dye for Borgu, you shouldn't rub it on your skin. All right? It's not particularly toxic, but I don't think you should paint yourself with it. Hi Andy, I'd like to ask if there's a way I can prevent the Monomy being shifted downwards after receiving strikes. When I put the men on initially, it sits at the right level, but after a couple of strikes, the Monomy is shifted down ever so slightly. Not to the point where it completely obstructs my vision, however, it's still enough to be noticeable and annoying. Is there a way I can counter this? My men is custom made, so fitting shouldn't be an issue. Thanks for answering my question. Towards a written exam a couple of weeks have passed. I passed my Shodan exam. Thank you very much. Good. Well done on passing your Shodan. So if your Monomy is moving when you're being hit, probably your men's not tied correctly. So you probably need to tie it a little bit tighter, or make sure that the knot is in the right place. first of all. And secondly, if it's quite a new men, it might just be that it's still breaking in to fit your face. So you might get that for a month or two of the first bit of usage, but it'll start to sort of sit around the right place over time. As the UK gradually opens up, having vaccinated a large proportion of its population, it appears that scientists are keen to maintain social distancing measures, making a return to normal practice unlikely. Ever thought about taking up Naginata? No. Yeah, I mean, just quickly, I mean, yeah, I know they're saying that we might need to keep social distancing even after everyone's vaccinated and everything. But it's like, it doesn't mean we'll never be able to go back to doing Kendo. I don't think that's likely. And no, I haven't thought about Naginata. It doesn't interest me. I'm only interested in Kendo. Looks fine. Looks fun. Tried it once. Wasn't for me. Hi Andy, some lesser known Kendo shops often offer so-called value sets bug without a door. Would you consider an offer such thing? Yeah, we can do. And if you get in touch with us, we can do that. You don't get a great discount on losing the door though, because we generally get a better rate from our both from our workshop and obviously for importing everything, all the shipping and stuff, by doing it together as a set. So you don't save that much by buying a value set. It's funny you mentioned all the burger shops doing it. It was me that invented that concept when I used to work at them. But they're not that popular. I know they offer them, but they're not that popular because, like I say, you don't save that much. But and one thing that concerns me a bit is cluttering up our website with products that people aren't interested in. So that's the reason that we haven't put them up there so far. But if it's something that people would like to see, then let me know and we could perhaps add it. But in the meantime, if you want one of our burger sets and you don't want the door, we can arrange it. But just don't expect to like get it for half price or something. All right. Next one. Can you wear the new protective undershirt for the RANT? I'm already wearing it. Honest. Nah, I'm not presenting this show in my underwear. And I know I already presented it wearing some stupid clothes and stuff for Halloween and what have you. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here in underwear. Last one. The All Japan Invitational 8th Dan Kendo Championships is taking place shortly. Who are the likely contenders this year and who do you think is going to win? Well, I think I'll make a video about it. Hey, about like how I did with the All Japans. Because it's quite an interesting field of competitors this year. A lot of the sort of big names aren't there, but it's not, I don't think it's a police thing because there's other senseis that are in it that are sort of former police officers or even sort of current police instructors. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting tournament for sure. The thing about the 8th Dan Championships is you never know who's going to win it, even when you've got these big names. Now, obviously, you know, when like Miyazaki Masahiro started playing in it, and then Eiga Naoki Sensei started playing in it, those are extremely successful competitors throughout the decades, and they've both done well in it. But it's not a given in the 8th Dan tournament. Like, the 8th Dan tournament, literally anyone can win it. And the All Japans is like that too. I mean, that's what Shiai is. So it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting tournament in that regard. But you know, there are some interesting names coming up this time. A very important sensei to me, Ishikawa Kaoru Sensei from Kyoto, is participating. He was very important to me in the time that I lived in Kyoto, and he was very influential in my Kendo progression. I was very fortunate, and I'm very grateful to have learned under his instruction for those years. So I'm obviously hoping that he's going to do very well. But the obvious one, if I had to sort of put money on it, which I wouldn't, but if I had to pick one person who's going to win, I'd say it's going to be Nabeyama Sensei from Ibaraki. But you never know. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll make a video about it soon. That's it. Thank you for joining me today. we got through all the questions. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Why don't you pick up a Tenagu if you want to support the channel, or a Borga or a Shinai or whatever you want, all right, at KendoStar.com, because that's what pays for the lights to stay on. And not just that, we're the best shop on the internet. Let's be honest, you know. I know I'd say that, but check out our reviews. We're the highest rated. So, you know, support us. You get awesome gear. Win-win. See you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.